Chet. Mr. President, the nuclear treaty comes up in the Senate today. What do you think will happen?
Well, I think it will be a hard debate for into next week, and then I think it will pass.
Any guess on how close?
No, I think there's some opposition, and it could be close. I think we'd be in bad shape if it's defeated. And my guess is that 2/3 of the Senate will decide that it's in the national interest to support it. This has been a matter which has involved the United States now since '45 to get some control of nuclear weapons. 3 administrations. It is strongly supported by not only President Eisenhower, President Truman, President and myself, Joint Chiefs of Staff, Secretary of State and Defense. If we had decided at this point that we were not going to go ahead, after we negotiated the treaty, after we've had it lying on the table for a year, and after nearly 90 nations have signed it, it would seem to me it would be a most damaging blow to the United States and to our leadership of the free world. It would put the whole responsibility for the future nuclear race on us. We would bear the responsibility for spreading radiation throughout the hemisphere. I think we could look forward to an intensification of the nuclear race by a good many countries not now in it. And I think it would be a signal for disaster, really, for the race, the human race. I think the Senate must support it for that reason. At least that's my hope.
Mr. President, in respect to our difficulties in South Vietnam, does our government once in a while tend to get locked into a policy or an attitude and then finds it difficult to change or to improvise in the field as circumstances may warrant?
Yes, I'm sure it does. But on the other hand, what we're attempting to do in South Vietnam and a good many other countries is very difficult also. I think we sometimes are not patient enough. These events happen. The world, they're recorded on the television screens and the front page of the papers. We're dealing with a very long, drawn-out struggle in South Vietnam, going back this particular phase of it 10 years, the previous phase against the French another nearly 10 years, and then when the Japanese were there. So it's almost 25 years of struggle in Vietnam. We feel that there have to be the adoption of some policies, certain policies, to be successful. We don't want to have a repetition of China, because that was the most damaging event, certainly, that's occurred to us, and perhaps in this century, when that passed into the control of the communists. So I think that what we're attempting to do is to provide support for the people of Vietnam in the struggle, encourage the government to move in the direction that will win and hold that support. That takes some time. That takes some time. I don't think we should make a decision that South Vietnam is lost this week. We're working hard to attempt to influence the situation there so that the struggle, which I think is better than it was 2 years ago. At least it was earlier this summer. We were doing better than we were 2 years ago. We had some hope that we were getting to the end of the tunnel. I think, as I've said, the events of the last 2 months have not helped that struggle. We're anxious to see the situation develop there so that the struggle will be aided.
May we reduce some of our aid to South Vietnam?
We have to, we would reduce it only if we felt that such a reduction would aid the struggle there. As of today, we have not made that judgment. We've not decided to reduce it as of yet.
Has our government in any way been tardy in recognizing the nature of the Siem government, do you think?
Well, the Siem government is there. It's been there a decade. And as I've said, for the last 2 years, in our opinion, the military opinion out there, General Hawkins and others, the struggle was going better. So that it's pretty hard. We don't want to carry on a direct assault upon the government. We have to deal with the government that is there. What has concerned us is the events of the past 2 months do not give us as great an assurance for success in the struggle as was true up till May and June. Now we are attempting to use our influence to bring the situation back to what it was.
Mr. President, have you ever had any reason to doubt this so-called domino theory, that if South Vietnam falls, the rest of Southeast Asia will go along behind it?
No, I believe it. I believe it. I think that The struggle is close enough. China is so large, looms so high on just beyond the frontiers. If South Vietnam went, it would not only give them an improved geographic position for a guerrilla assault on Malaya, but would also give the impression that the wave of the future in Southeast Asia was China and the communists. So I believe it.
In the last 48 hours, there have been a great many conflicting reports from there about what the CIA was up to. Could you give us any enlightenment on that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Does the CIA tend to make its own policy?
No.
That seems to be the debate here.
Now, that is a frequent charge, but that isn't so. Mr. McCone, who's head of the CIA, sits in the National Security Council. We had a number of meetings in the last few days about events in South Vietnam. Mr. McCone participated in every one, and the CIA coordinates its efforts with the Defense Department and State Department.
With the House Ways and Means Committee due to act tomorrow, perhaps, and in view of General Eisenhower's statement of last night, former President Truman's statement of this morning, what are the chances of a tax cut, Mr. President?
I think there's going to be a tax cut because I think that for us not to have a tax cut would be so unwise and would throw our economic progress in 1964 into sufficient jeopardy. It has been my strong view that we not only should have a tax cut for the economic progress of this country, but will have a tax cut.
Well, with so much of our prestige, money, so on, committed in South Vietnam, why can't we exercise a little more influence there, Mr. President?
We have some influence. We have some influence. And and we're attempting to carry it out. I think we can't expect these countries to do everything the way we want to do them. They've got their own interests, their own personality, their own tradition. We can't make everyone in our image, and there's a good many people who don't want to go in our image. In addition, we have ancient struggles between countries. In the case of India and Pakistan, we'd like to have them settle Kashmir. That's our view of the best way to defend the subcontinent against communism. But that struggle between India and Pakistan is more important to a good many people in that area than the struggle against the communists. We would like to have Cambodia, Thailand, and South Vietnam all in harmony, but there are ancient differences there. We can't make the world over, but we can influence the world, and the fact of the matter is that the United States, with the assistance of the United States and CETO, Southeast Asia, and indeed all of Asia, has been maintained independent against a very powerful force, the Chinese communists. What I'm concerned about is that Americans will get impatient and say that because they don't like events in Southeast Asia or they don't like the government in Saigon, that they will then say we should withdraw. That only makes it easy for the communists, and I think we should stay, we should use our influence in as effective a way as we can, but we should not withdraw.
Well, to leave the crisis of the moment for a moment, the nuclear treaty, even when passed, of course, does not apply to Red China. What is your view of the danger of a nuclear-armed China in, say, sometime the 70s?
I think it would be very great unless they change their present policy. It would be a great danger for us. It would be also a great danger for the Soviet Union, which borders on China. I would hope that as time went on, that China's policy would change. Otherwise, of course, we will have to look forward to a future president and the American people living in a time of very great peril. But countries do change their policies. Events force them to change. Reality forces a change. And my feeling is, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so strong for this test ban, I think that this is one of the steps which may bring about a change in China's policy, or at least some movement in China's policy over a period of time.
Mr. President, there have been some sounds lately from Democrats in Congress that Democrats, particularly those in Congress, are in trouble for 1964, particularly those in the North. Have you seen any signs of such trouble, and it's possibly due to the civil rights issue?
I think there'll be some. I think everyone's probably going to be in trouble in 1964, in the sense they have to compete. On the other hand, I think the Democrats will have a good record when they leave here. And I think that that record will be put against the record of the Republican Party in the Congress. When that's done, of course, I look with some optimism at 1964. I think that we have a good chance, if we get the tax cut, to have a good 2 or 3 years and possibly longer of prosperity. We have a good chance to make a dent in this unemployment which has been with us for the last 5 years. We have a good chance if we carry out the other programs, education, mental health, conservation, resource development, and all the rest, to go to the people in 1964 with a good record. That's why I think the Congress should stay in session. That's why I don't think we should hurry home this fall. We've got a good deal of unfinished business left before us, and I think that Congress will stay here until it's voted these matters up or down. That's my strong conviction.
Someone called the civil rights issue in 1964, I think, the fear of the political unknown. Would you agree?
Yes, I think that what they're wondering is what effect this will have, whether the North, which has supported civil rights in the past, will continue to support it. I think they will. I think the bill we put in is a reasonable bill, and I think that my judgment is that we will not divide this country politically into Negroes and whites. That'd be a fatal mistake for a society which should be as united as ours is.
The issue in Congress, is it going
I think it ought to be divided, in other words, Republicans and Democrats, but not by race.
But in the Congress, do you see the issue coming down to a full-scale test of strength, or do you see it ending in a compromise?
We don't start off with a compromise. I hope it's going to pass as close to the form as we sent it up as possible.
Do you plan to see President Tito this fall, Mr. President?
Well, I don't know. It would depend in part, and there are other presidents who will be coming. If they come to the United Nations, I would expect to see most of them.
If we apply retaliatory tariffs, about which there's been considerable comment and discussion lately, for what they did to, in effect, our chickens, is there a danger of touching off a full-scale and even destructive trade and economic war? Or are we dealing from such strength that we're confident the common market nations will come around?
No, I don't think we're confident. I think it's always possible. On the other hand, we do have rights under the GATT agreements. What they have done on the matter of chickens gives us the right, under treaties previously signed, to take retaliation. That is not what we wish to do, but if we don't protect our interest in this case, then the next time we negotiate and we are deprived of our rights, then no one will have any confidence that the United States will protect its interests vigorously. It is a $50 million matter. It does affect our balance of payments. Other matters will be coming up. I think we have to bargain as hard as they are. They've been bargaining very hard with us on chickens. I hope a compromise is reached, but if it isn't, I think that we should protect our right.
I'm through.
Mr. President, it has been said by some that this office, President of the United States, is almost unmanageable. How do you feel about it after about 3.5 years?
Well, I think that the problems that we face seem somewhat unmanageable, but that's because the spectrum is so wide. If you realize that 25 years ago, the major problems, and they were, of course, tremendously serious, really the major problems involved the domestic economy and Western Europe. Now we involved in Saigon, Laos, the Congo, all through Latin America in the most detailed way. The problems have become almost overwhelming. In addition, we still have a very difficult society here at home to keep moving along. When you think of the number of people that are coming into the labor market every year, we have to find about 35,000 new jobs every week just to almost hold our own. That's why I keep coming back to the tax cut. I think that, and we have a history in the 50s of, particularly at the end, of sluggishness. We had a recession in 58, a recession in 60. We've had a higher rate of unemployment than any country in the West in the last 5 years. I think we have to move ahead in the same way, for example, that the British. It's rather interesting that the British government, which has a conservative party, put its tax cut in effect in 1 month. A larger tax cut that we've been talking about for a year, they put into effect in 1 month. And the fact is the British economy is now booming, and its unemployment has been cut. I think we can do the same. I use that as only one example of some of the difficulties of managing the affairs of government. This is a big government, big country with wide influences. But I think we are making a good deal of progress. If we look back over our record over the last 18 years, I think we can take some satisfaction in it. Western Europe is still secure. Asia is still secure. Your country's never been more prosperous than it now is. Its gross national product is 4 times what it was 20 years ago. So I think we can look forward in the 60s with a good deal of hope. But of course, this country and its affairs are not managed in the real sense in the White House. There's 180 million decisions being made which finally manage the country.
There are occasional signs of continuing conflict between the civilian and military aspects in the Pentagon. Is this something that we should be concerned about, or is it more or less endemic to our system and the questions and issues that confront us?
I think it's probably inevitable, and because the military have a definite responsibility, which is to prepare for war, and they have to assume that that war may begin tomorrow. No society can live generally with that degree of tension, that degree of concentration. So in a sense, there's a built-in conflict. But that their judgment has to be recognized, taken into account. But I think even they would agree that that is only one of the factors that we must consider. We can't live preparing for a war that may begin tomorrow with a certainty that it may begin tomorrow. We have to prepare to protect ourselves. We have to prepare for an aggression that may occur. But we can't do everything that the military want. Even before we sent our budget up to the Congress, we had cut the military budget nearly $14 billion, and still it was the highest military budget when it finally went up in the history of the country, and it's already been cut by the House of Representatives another $2 billion. I think that's too much, but I think there is a conflict. It was decided by the constitutional drafters, however, that that conflict should be finally settled by the civilians, that they should bear the responsibility.
Thank you, Mr. President.
There's one or two places we're a little ragged. I thought we might do almost think about doing them over. One is Saigon.
I'm sorry, sir.
3.5 years? Yeah, 2.5.
Well, that doesn't matter.
One is, we're a little sort of general about South Vietnam. I don't know whether we can improve it a little. I hadn't heard what President Truman said either. What was that?
He said he's opposed to a tax cut until you get the budget down. Do you want to do that one over?
I think maybe South Vietnam was a little more verbose than it needed to be.
Do you recall
your question?
Which? I see. I said first one was, do we tend to get locked into a policy and find it difficult?
Maybe that was the part that I didn't quite get onto.
Another part I asked was, are we late in recognizing the true nature of the Siem regime?
Yeah, those are both questions that I don't think they're rather difficult.
Will we reduce may we reduce our aid, I asked. And then...
No, that's all right. I think what I said on that was all right. I think it was those other two. I don't know.
What sort of way can't we use more influence in South Vietnam? If we have influence, why don't we use it?
Yeah, you asked three somewhat difficult questions about South Vietnam, and the result was that I'm afraid my answers were awfully...
You want to do them again?
Let's take them again.
Okay, let's try it. Do it again, and we'll see what it comes out this time. I'm surprised at Truman. My God. They get him on those morning walks. And... I went into it a little at the end, even though it wasn't responding, because I don't think I'd put enough in as to why we wanted the tax cut. So,
Want to take
it was really no, but it was really in response to another question of yours. I don't know whether we can tag it on to, if you want to decide in cutting it.
Something. Hubert was talking the other day in the Senate, and he said what the people in this country believe is perhaps more important, believe is true, is perhaps more important than what is true. Is it becoming apparent that the idea of deficits cannot, we're not recording them, cannot be sold to the American people?
I think it's damn difficult. I think we just have to...
You think it's impossible to sell it to them?
Well, God, we've been trying, and he told Truman, he wants to be helpful, and he is helpful in every chance he gets. When I just think of that British experience, of course, it's fantastic what they were able to do. Without, I mean, there were objections to them for not doing enough. Why everybody thinks that recession and unemployment, which is next year, I don't say you can keep, by next April, this will be the longest peacetime recovery since the longest economic period of economic expansion since the Civil War. So, I mean, you're bound to have the dip down. You know?
The British
since...
quick, immediate.
So in answer to your question, I don't think, maybe you have to go through one more hard experience.
Let me ask you that this time, all right? And maybe we should say what Truman said, because a lot of people will not have heard. All right. Anytime you're ready. Yeah.
I'll take these on South Vietnam, then, if you want to pick up the...
Okay.
Mr. President, in respect to our difficulties in South Vietnam, could it be that our government tends occasionally to get locked into a policy or an attitude and then finds it difficult to alter or shift that policy?
Yes, that's true. I think in the case of South Vietnam, we've been dealing with a government which is in control, has been in control for 10 years. In addition, we have felt for the last 2 years that the struggle against the communists was going better. Since June, however, the difficulties with the Buddhists, we've been concerned about a deterioration, particularly in the Saigon area, which hasn't been felt greatly in the outlying areas, but may spread. So we're faced with the problem of wanting to protect the area against the communists. On the other hand, we have to deal with the governments there. That produces a kind of ambivalence in our efforts, which expose us to some criticism. We are using our influence to persuade the government there to take those steps which will win back support. That takes some time, and we must be patient. We must persist.
Are we likely to reduce our aid to South Vietnam?
I don't think we think that that would be helpful at this time. If you reduce your aid, it's possible you could have some effect upon the government structure there. On the other hand, you might have a situation which could bring about a collapse. Strongly in our mind is what happened in the case of China at the end of World War II, where China was lost, weak government became increasingly unable to control events. We don't want that. On the other hand, we don't want a dictatorship that alienates people by its very repressions. So I think it's going to take some time before we bring an improvement in the Saigon area, or before the government improves its policies and its relations with the countries around the world. But I'm not sure it can't be done. In fact, I think it can be done.
Mr. President, has our government been late or tardy in recognizing the true nature of the Diem government?
There's been some difference of view. On the one hand, as I say, Diem has been in control for 10 years. Number two, there has been a better military result in the last 2 years. That's been on the encouraging side. Internally, however, there's been some, particularly the last 2 months, degree of concern, so that it's not a black and white situation. It's a matter which we have to work with. This is also true in South Korea. It's true in other governments around the world, in Latin America. We have to work through the people that are there, through the governmental structure that is there. We can't bring about overnight changes. They won't accept them and probably be unwise. The United States can't write the bill for every country. But I think we can use our influence, but I think we have to recognize that it takes some time.
We don't want to get into the business of knocking over and building other governments.
We want to... Particularly, we want to influence events which will bring success. Now, that's been done in some cases. And as I say, we have reason to be encouraged ultimately about South Vietnam. What has concerned us, however, is the course that events have taken in the last weeks. We're trying to change that course to the degree that we can from 10,000 miles away.
Mr. President, Harry Truman was out for his walk this morning, and he said he did not think we should have a tax cut until we get the budget balanced. And the other day, Senator Humphrey was saying in the Senate that what the American people think is true is very often more important than what actually is true. In view of all that, what do you think about cutting taxes while the budget is still in deficit?
The reason the government's in deficit is because you've got more than 4 million people unemployed. And because for the last 5 years, you've had rather a sluggish growth, much slower than any other Western country. I'm in favor of a tax cut because I'm concerned that if we don't get the tax cut, that we're going to have an increase in unemployment and that we may move into a period of economic downturn. We had a recession in '58, recession in 1960. We've done pretty well since then, but we still have over 4 million unemployed. And I think this tax cut can give the stimulus to our economy over the next 2 or 3 years. I think it will provide for greater national wealth. I think it will reduce unemployment. I think it will strengthen our gold position. So I think that the proposal we've made is responsible and in the best interest of the country. Otherwise, if we don't get the tax cut, I would think that our prospects are much less certain. I think the Federal Reserve Board has indicated that. 1964 is going to be an uncertain time if we don't get the tax cut. I think to delay it to 1964 would be very unwise. I think our whole experience in the late 50s shows us how necessary and desirable it is. My guess is that if we can get the tax cut with the stimulus it will give to the economy, that we'll get our budget in balance quicker than we will if we don't have it.
The affirmative economic response to Britain's tax cut seemed to be almost immediate. Would it be as immediate in this country, do you think?
I think it would be. Interestingly enough, the British came forward with their tax cut in April, passed it within a month. They're experiencing the economic benefits for it. Unemployment's been substantially reduced. They have a larger deficit than we do. Yet the only criticism was that it wasn't enough. Nearly every economist has supported that. I think that It's in the best economic interest of the country, unless this country just wants to drag along, have 5 or 6 million people unemployed, have profits reduced, have economic prospects, have our budget unbalanced by a much larger proportion. The largest unbalanced budget in the history of this country was in 1958 because of the recession, $12.5 billion. The fact of the matter is, of course, government expenditures do go up in every administration, but the country's wealth goes up. President Eisenhower spent $185 billion more than President Truman. But the country was much wealthier. It's much wealthier now than it was in the last year of President Eisenhower's administration. I think our economic situation can be very good. I think what we've proposed is a responsible answer to a problem which has been part of our economic life for 5 or 6 years, and that is slack, failure to grow sufficiently, relatively high unemployment. And if you put that together with the fact that we have to find 35,000 new jobs a week, I think the situation in this country calls for a tax reduction this year.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, I don't know. They're going to have to cut that a little around because we covered about that. But you're up to that.
We can do that.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
All right.
Fine.
You just want me asked? Yeah. All right.
Is that going to be tough, a half hour? A day?
No, I don't think so.
What about your other
It
show?
isn't really that much more
Do you
time.
need the
15
president?
minutes is so damn
No.
little that a half hour isn't that much more.
How about your other?
I've had
Sure.
to drop that.
Oh, yeah.
I can't do that. It's just too much work.
We don't need the president for that question. Oh, all right, I can ask. Mr. President, it has been said by some that this office, President of the United States, is almost unmanageable. How do you feel about it after 2.5 years?
You want
No, you just wanted my question.
Why don't we try? I tell you what, because I covered some of that tax thing and I think the British thing in my answer to that question, I'll just do another answer here.
Good.
I think probably then,
Fine.
and we won't. I can just start in.
Taylor and Cutter will make the point. All right.
I think that the problems which affect this country sometimes seem almost unmanageable, and I suppose they finally end up here in the White House, whether it's the efforts we should make to maintain our rate of economic growth, deal with our gold, influence events in Saigon, the Congo, or in Latin America. I think that it means that the life of almost every American as a citizen is almost unmanageable. But this is a assignment and a responsibility which we've taken on domestically and abroad, and this has been particularly intensified since the end of World War II. On the whole, I think this country has done an outstanding job. A good many countries today are free that would not be free. Communism's gains since 1945, in spite of chaos and poverty, have been limited, and I think that the balance of power still rests with the West, and I think it can increase our strength if we make the right decisions this year, economically here at home and in the field of foreign policy. And two matters that we've been talking about are examples of that. One is the tax cut, which affects our economic growth, which affects the whole movement of this country internally, the test ban treaty, which affects our security abroad and our leadership. That's why I think it's very important that the Senate pass it. You know, the old story that who prepares for battle if the trumpet blows an uncertain sound. Well, I think that if the United States Senate rejected that treaty after the government has committed itself to it, the sound from the United States around the world would be very uncertain.
That's good.
Excellent. We are very much appreciated.
All right, good. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Good, fine. How is the charade, the great movie that you're going to?
I haven't seen it. She saw it. Is it good? She liked it. She liked it. And we both, everybody loves Ella Fitzgerald. So it's a great show. Can you make it?
I'll do that.
Good.
Which night is it?
24.
We're going to have a function.
Are you? We've been waiting. Looked for a while as if we were going to have an hour.
No, I told him that.
So, well, the news hasn't reached us, though.